Welcome to Ngozi Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Welcome to Ngozi Talk Shows, everyone. My name is Nomsa Clara Mnde. I am the founder of Hope Spring Eternal Introduction Agency and the founder of Ngozi Talk Shows. And I am a love harmonist. So if you're looking for love, you know where to go. So today I have these beautiful two ladies, Dr. Laura and Dr. Bigot. Over to you, Dr. Bigot. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and when you listen to this. And let me ask you, have you ever known someone in your life where you are concerned about their condition? It might be physical, but it could also be an emotional conditions. And you actually encourage them to ask for help, but something is stopping them. And wonder why. Sometimes it's a stigma. It's a lot of misbelief, so to say, it's about multiple different things in life that influence us from being able to do what it is that actually best for us. And so, if it is something where you would love to be able to help somebody in your life, or perhaps yourself, listen up as we share on how it is that you will be able to create a more wonderful, thriving life emotionally and physically with more ease and fun by listening to the tips and tools that we share, including with myself as the grief transformation coach. I see this happen a lot. People grieving and they have hesitant. They're something holding them back from asking for support. And so listen up, and then that way you too will be able to help people whom you care and love very dearly as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. Over to you, Dr. Laura. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dr. Laura Cobb. I am a life coach and licensed professional counselor, author, and speaker. And I'm grateful to be here because, as the previous doctor mentioned, if you know someone, if you yourself have considered possibly taking the life of something that is given to you and the privilege of knowing you, there is help available. We're here to discuss the serious issue and to let you know that there's hope, because hope means hold on, pain ends.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Laura. Yes, our topic today, we are doing part 2. So if anyone who has not seen part 2, please go part 1, please go back and watch part 1. Basically, as Dr. Bigot mentioned and Dr. Laura, basically, if you know anyone that wants to take their lives due to mental health problems, please be there to listen to them, and do not agree that you're going to keep a secret for them, because if they take their own lives and you knew about it and you agreed that you're going to keep it a secret, and their blood will be in your own hands, because you'll be surprised at how many people, when they die, God is waiting for them to say, okay, my children died because of me. So you have to listen and be honest to that person when they're telling you. If you see that it's gone deep, the mental health is gone deep, just be honest and say, I can't keep this a secret as much as I love you. But give that person a chance to actually come clean and get professional help as well. And of course, you can listen. You can't give some advice. I know some people love to give people advice. You can't give advice to somebody who wants to take their own lives. The only advice you can check is, have you conducted a professional help? Or what part do you want me to play in helping you getting out, not getting in planning suicidal? Some people get involved in plan. You don't get involved because we don't want the bloodshed. So you can just help. But there are so many people out there, Dr. Laura, basically, who are going through challenging times, and sometimes they feel that the only way to do is to take their own lives. And by the way, those who didn't know that taking your own life is actually a sin, you could go to hell. You go to hell basically because you don't have a right. Even the life is yours, but you don't have a right in God's eyes to take it. So for those who think they have a right, you don't have a right to take that life. So Dr. Laura, can you basically, if somebody is going through challenges that now and they are having these suicidal thoughts and they think, basically they see the world that I'm better off basically taking my life. So what advice would you give them at this moment?
That's a challenging question. I suppose it depends on how the framework from which a person comes. And the challenge with that is that they actually have to be heard. And for someone who is contemplating taking their life, that they think that the world would be a better place without them, then that means from their perspective, they think that possibly they don't matter and maybe they don't make a difference. And if someone wants to be heard and seen, then it takes a moment to listen. Sometimes we often refer to the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. I believe in the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated. And what that means is we actually have to take a moment and let someone know that the world would not be better if they were not there. And I don't agree with the shame and guilt and say, how could you possibly, what were you thinking? Why would you think that it's not their job? Because if we rely on faith and say, this is not what God intended, and to shame someone, say that it's not in conjunction with their spiritual faith, then we haven't taken the time to align ourselves with how that person feels. And I can recite the facts and the statistics and the numbers and that negates the reality of from where someone's coming. So it really does. This is such a sensitive issue. The concern I have is with all the advice and the shoulds that is offered by so-called experts in the field. And really, are any of us experts? Does any of us really, really, really know what happens after? I would purport that some do. I would purport that some have had experiences that close. However, if it's final, then none of us really know. If you in your being know, and I provide for you numerous statistics and facts of what science says, I want you to consider this. That moment in your life when you felt so strongly that you loved something, anything, and then I asked you to prove it. Prove it. There's no numbers or facts. There's no statistics to validate that. What is valid are your feelings. about that. I can't prove it. You feel it. So to take the time and listen for a moment, that would be my suggestion. That's my concern. Are we really listening to the people who are feeling so much so that it would matter if they were here? So that's why they don't think it doesn't matter. I just can't handle the pain. That's the thing. The pain that they're feeling exceeds anything that's beneficial for them to be here. Listen.
Dr. Bigot, are you there?
Yes,
I
I'm
can
here.
hear
Yes,
you.
I need to remember to unmute.
Yes, and remember also to respond to the messages, not typing, because some channels the messages can't go through, like LinkedIn. Say you have to use your voice to respond to the messages, so people know that you're not ignoring them.
Thank you. Good to know. These people are my own page, so I know they can see the answer. But that's a wonderful thing to know. So thank you so much. And yes, good morning, Rach, and good morning, Agadir. Thank you for joining us today. And so please share your thought here. We love to hear your thoughts and always welcome your thoughts about this, or if there is something else in your mind at any time. So the that is I love that. I love how Dr. Laura and that with listen. Many times we have people who are going through things and we said you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. But for someone who is and sometimes it's normal and natural to say, and my pleasures, Agadir, thank you. And it's normal and natural that we say, oh, but how could you do that? That is so irresponsible to your children, to society, to whatever. It's as an outsider, it's understandable that sometimes we have that type of reaction, and partly because we now you want to I want to invite you to actually to first understand that if you have that reaction when somebody want to take their life, you're like, how could they do that? This and that. That's usually actually even that come from love, either love or fear. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says that the bottom of all emotions is love or fear. And I'm glad Dr. Laura's agree in that. And so, but love or fear does not always express themselves as love or fear. When somebody is pushed, and being an oncologist as well, I see this many a times too, besides being a grief coach or was an oncologist. I see this in oncology, I see this in grief. When where somebody is under pressures, when they're fearful, or when their love is threatened, then which make us fearful, many times it's transformed to anger. And that's why you feel angry. You're like, how could you do this? But that's calm. Just notice, even when you feel that way, it does not make you a bad person. And the reason I want to say this is what many times, sometimes when I deal with suicide or self-inflicted harm, the persons who is the outsider, the person who caring about this other person, start to think they are you. If you caring, you start to think you are a bad person. If you feeling angry, you are not. We do not need to have two people feeling bad here. You are not a bad person. You are actually caring as well. Thank you, Rena. I'm glad you're joining us. Please share your thoughts. You are not a bad person. Even if you're feeling angry, you're not mean or anything in that aspect. It's actually also come from love from you. And sometimes love express itself, love or fear express itself differently. But that just, I want you to be clear about this. You are wonderful, and that's come because you're caring. Now, the person who are thinking about the self-inflicting harm, including suicide, in general, as Dr. Laura says, they're in so much pain. Whatever that many other people think and whatever your reaction might at the moment says, they are in such a great pain. And in general, there are two things when somebody in pain is work for them. And in addition to you, if they themselves actually refuse, at least here in the United States, if they themselves actually refuse to ask for help and they are in critical danger, you are definitely able, and it is good for you to actually contact mental health professional. There is a suicide helpline here in the United States, or call somebody else's. And so that is something that you want to do. Contact mental health professional, call 911 here in the United States, and many countries also have emergency number. Call them, please. And in the interim, what works is to listen to them. To listen, what the Grief Recovery Institute has this term of be a heart with ears, and I say be a heart with ears and open hand. Listen with compassion, listen with love, and in addition to that, draw from your memory. What is it that one or good thing that they have done? Like Dr. Rora said, it's very, very common. It's basically the common theme of people who want to suicide. They feel they don't matter. You know they matter. You, even though they cannot see it, you can see that that they have done certain things that's bringing good to other people. And so, what are the one or two things that's really that they have done? Um, there is I forgot the name of the movie now. It'll come to me in a moment. But there is a movie that's the character has done so much good in life, and at the moment, because his bank was in trouble, he feel that he has absolutely no good. And an angel in that movie come and show him, look, that sometimes we cannot see it, but you being the persons with these people who want to be in having a challenge, you might say, remember the time that when you doing this for this person, you know how much of a difference that make to that person. Look at that person where they were and where they are now. If you had not say hi to the person, it wouldn't be here anymore. So the second thing, so the three things you can do: call mental health, call emergency line or a mental health professional. The second thing is to listen, and then the third thing, if you are able at all, to draw in your memory and point out to your loved one who is having a really tough time, what is one or two or three good thing? Even better if you can share about your own experience with that person. Say, well, I know you don't think you matter, but remember when you say this to me? If you have not said that, if you had not called me that very day, I might not have been here. And when they feel that they make a difference, even in the slightest way, in your life or others' life, that will help them hang on, maybe even if just for another hour, until you can get the help that they need. So that's my long 2 cents.
I love that. If I may interject, wow, that was absolutely just, I'm going to gush on you, Doctor, if I may, that in the words of the Dalai Lama, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Because there will be remnants. There will be an after effect that you will know that the mosquito was there. And what right do I have to disallow the mosquito from living other than it may feel like, if I feel that way, it may feel like I'm an imposition. It may feel like I'm a burden, I'm a bother. That's my perspective. And so I know what's been helpful for me is service. Yesterday was a tough day for me. Yesterday was a really, really tough day. And I know that no matter what, sometimes when I lean into that, I experience it and it leaves. The concern that I have is that when I can't get out of it, when I can't get out of that place. And all I know is that from my own experience, having sat on a cold slab of cement, homeless, wondering, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. I'm a bother for the world. I don't want to, not that I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be anything. That's the challenge. So then how do I even ask for help when I feel like a burden to even ask for help? And I say that from a personal and professional stance, because we all got stuff. You're looking at me, you're looking at Dr. Tan and Namsa, no matter what, when it comes down to it, everybody's got something. Everybody's got something, no matter what. You might not know what it is. Just because I have a certain few letters before or after my name means nothing, to the extent that when it all comes down to it, we are human beings. So then can we possibly sit in each other's space? And that takes a minute. Because I tell you what, I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. There's a program called QTR. It's similar to CPR. And it's for suicide prevention. Question, proceed, refer. And the focus is that if you have been in that place and you know someone, even if you haven't been in that place and you know someone, even if you think you don't know somebody, we all are here to question. It's an existential question. Some might call it woo-woo. It's existential in that we don't know. So what we can do right here is sit with. And so we question whether or not, some people say, well, it was just a cry for help. Well, what if that cry for help was legitimate and it's just a sheep in wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing? Well, I would very well like to save that sheep. So we question. And if you don't feel confident or competent to provide services, that's what QPR is. Question, persuade, refer. Take a one hand. If someone's choking, do you feel confident to provide the Heimlich maneuver? Maybe. Are you able to drive the ambulance to the hospital? Do you have access to the ambulance? Do you have access to a hospital? That's a whole nother level of questions. So you don't have to do this alone when you know someone who's hurting themselves or is going to hurt themselves. And as a mandated reporter, I'm obligated to say, I know someone who's going to start something. Now, you know what? Have I thought about it ever? Of course. Have I entertained it? No. Have I made a plan? No. That doesn't refer to the fact that I'm obligated as a person, as a human, to sit with you, because I'm not here as a doctor right now. That gives me the credibility to come on this stage, to come on this forum. What qualifies me to speak right now is that I'm a human being listening to you. And I know that these women here now know that true in their heart too, that we care. So whatever else I have to say is that you matter. And I mean that I'm looking at you, you matter. Thanks.
Laura, I actually agree with you and Dr. Bigot, and I think if you know that you made in life, and if you want to take your own life, it's fine. If that's what you desire, that's what you want. But at the end of the day, I know when you're going through some stuff, sometimes it can feel that the whole world is against you. It's because that feeling is only you that you're feeling. And when you try to talk to people, sometimes it's hard. When you try to talk to people, it's like myself, I see myself, I'm okay. When I try to send a message across to other people, but I feel that sometimes they want to control me. Or can you imagine somebody who has a mental health problems and they're trying to actually come to those kind of people and explaining this is what I'm going through. Basically, they are crying out, and somebody basically like judging them, because you don't have to judge the person that wants to take their own life. Your job is to actually listen to what they're going through, the experience that they're going through, and basically the feelings that, without having to tell them what to do, because you can't, basically you don't have a right to tell that person what to do, but you can listen and try to find out why they feel that way. But at the same time, you cannot be their therapist, because sometimes people are like, oh, I have a good energy, I can help this person. You can't if you're not qualified, I'm afraid, because you end up feeling the same thing. So it's important that to be aware that you can't play a therapist if you're not qualified to that person. You can listen, and basically your job will be, do you want help maybe to go online and with that person and trying to find the resources and doctors, conducting the doctors. And I did help somebody myself who wanted to take their own lives, but I think at the time, I don't know, I think I was 15 or 14. I was very, very young, and that person was an adult. But I was young because I played sports, football, and I was really strong. And they tried to take their own life, basically. I was like in the middle. We were basically in the middle of the park. People are watching me, this child that does not know anything. I'm wrestling with somebody, basically trying to take the medication away, what they wanted to drink to take. I'm wrestling. I'm like, if I can take this, and I didn't really care. The words were coming out of their mouth. I didn't care. I was after the medication. And once I got hold of the medication, I ran. I was like running and running and running. And I knew that person anyway. And they basically, when I took the medication, because I was young and they were older, it was an adult. So I think it hit them that if this child can actually manage to take this from me, and I didn't say anything, I just ran. For me, basically, what I was taking was, you can do whatever you want, but as long as you can't get a hold of the medication. And the other people didn't come and help because they were scared. So I was like taking, and I ran and I went to the adults, and I was like, she's trying to take her own life. And the good thing about that was that person realized straight away, because you come to a realization, and they basically went and got help. And I never ask any questions as a child, because I was a child. I never ask any questions, but then it made me realize that what I did, I asked my parents why, and they explained that the people take their lives, they try to do this because of this, because of this. It made me realize as well. And but I wouldn't, I never went, because basically what I saw was a letter. I saw a letter is written, and I was like, oh, why would this person write this letter? And then I followed them. I was like following behind. Somebody's walking, and I'm following behind. When they stop, I stop, not wanting them to know that I'm there. Basically observing what they're doing. I don't know why. Maybe it's an angel that was guiding me. So I have no clue what I was doing. But until basically they go into action and basically mixed everything, I was like, okay, now I need to go and take. So that's when I took, and that's when that was my first experience with somebody trying to take their own life. But I've had few people that I know that I'm closest to that have taken their own lives, but there was never signs. If I say there were signs that this person wanted to, basically it was so perfect, their life looked so perfect. So what I would say is, you don't have to show the world that everything is okay if it's not okay. And myself, basically, Dr. Bigot knows if I'm not okay, I don't hide it, because I've learned from the people that have left me behind that if you are not okay, the results of letting it go further, I could end up like this. So that's why sometimes when I don't feel okay, or if I'm struggling with something, to find something for me, I find it easy to confide in somebody. So I get help, or so they help me. Over, over to you, Dr. Bigot.
Yeah, I love two things. Thank you, Nimsa. I love two things. One thing that Dr. Laura mentions, and then something you implied just now. And she made the analogy of choking. I find this very interesting but very true. Where if somebody has a physical condition, I use this with grief. If you were to broke your leg, would you keep on running? Most people don't. But if you go out there and you got struck by lightning, or somebody, there's a loose arrow or a loose bullet or whatever and hit your heart, what would you do? You call 911 right on the spot. You ran to the doctor. If it is you broke your leg, so it's not as you didn't get hit in your heart, but you broke your leg, you go to the doctor right then. You don't go sit on a couch and say, let me just sit here with my broken leg and let's see if it's going to get better after about, 2 months. So maybe I'm going to give it 2 weeks. Or you keep on running with your broken leg, unless you happen to be running and need to run away from something. But then you try to get help as soon as you can. And at the same time, very interesting that when it comes to emotional pain and dangerous emotional condition, including pronounced grief and so forth, we sit here and say, let's just see if it's going to get better. Let's just see if it's going to go away on its own. Maybe if I go party, it'll get better. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. And the same thing, the analogy that's used is the analogy of choking. Suicide is like when somebody's choking. So if you see somebody choking and you are, like myself, are not particularly trained, or even if you do are trained with CPR, would you call 911 on the spot? Or if you see somebody, let's say it's the person not choking, but the person, you having dinner with somebody and you notice the person's like start to breathe funny, which is starting to get to the sign of trouble, would you actually try to call help? Or would you sit there and say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just kind of sit here and sit back and see. And then maybe if you finally stop breathing, then I'll call 911. Chances is you're like, what's going on? How come you start kind of, not breathing quite right and huffing and puffing there? And if the person cannot help himself or herself, chances you're going to call for help. There's no difference between emotional condition and physical conditions. And the danger is just as much between emotional and physical. They both can kill somebody, whether it's someone else's or you. If you are sitting in your house alone in your dark bedroom, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, my chest so tight, I could barely breathe, I feel suffocating, what would you do? I hope the answer is you're going to call 911 here in the United States or similar line in your country. Or if you wake up in the morning and you say, I just feel so horrible. I could not even get myself out of bed because when I got out of bed, I'm collapsed on the floor. That's physical. But when you are at the verge of inflicting self-harm, that's the equivalent of it. What would you do in that moment? If you imagine this, you wake up in the morning and you just collapse on the floor physically. Would you call help? Would you call your doctor? Would you call 911? If your answer is yes, know this, that the emotional pain that you feel paralyzing you, even though it's not a physical paralysis, the emotional pain that you feel paralyzing you is just as powerful and as dangerous. And you want to call for help, whether it is for yourself or for somebody else. Just like if you're choking, you want to call 911, whether it is for yourself or for somebody else. And just like Numsa's imply in there, it was a beautiful depictions that if it is somebody going through things, and even you might feel at this very moment the pain is not bearable. Now, let me establish this. Dr. Laura's kind of imply on that for a moment there earlier on, that it's not right or wrong. The feeling that you feel, your pain, is not right or wrong. You might say, oh, okay, so you're saying that I'm wrong feeling this way? No. Feelings are just feeling. I use the analogy of fingerprints. Your feelings are like your fingerprints. They're meant to be unique to you, and they different moment to moment, like your fingerprints, different fingers to fingers. So feelings are not right or wrong, and so you are entitled to whatever you're feeling. And at the same time, do know this. Sometimes we're in so much pain at the moment. If you can help the person, or you can hang on just for another hour, and in that meantime, call for help, then you might actually, after that hour pass, you notice that it's move on. And many times it's not even another hour. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, wrote a book, 90 seconds. Feelings are like waves. It's like waves. They come and hit you, bam, like that. And you're like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. But if you can just hang on for 9 minutes, and maybe you can take a next step and the next step. And in that 9 minutes, imagine you or this person's choking. And what would you do in that moment? Please ask for help as soon as you can.
I gotta say, I love that. I love that. I read my little thing here. Okay, that's so amazing. Because you know why? Because feelings are not fact. Like in the words of Brene Brown. Okay, there are two emotions. There's feelings. There's love and there's fear. It's like the primary colors. All the colors in this spectrum can be factor analysis. If you don't know research, I want to say trust me, but you don't know me from Eve, so I want to say trust me. But at the same time, those like trust me. There's 3 colors. There's 3 primary colors. All the other colors are based on an offshoot or a variation, not a deviation, a variation of those primary colors. We got blue, we got red, we got yellow. So what do we do with it? Love and fear. That's it. Well, I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel enraged, I feel joy, I feel happy, I feel satiated, I feel gratitude, I feel. All right. So when we feel something, and it's so intense that we cannot possibly imagine feeling anything else, that imagine that we are in a place where we feel so deeply we can't possibly stand it. So the last moment that you felt that, Brene Brown talks about that foreboding joy. I know I've experienced it when I've stood over the crib of my young son when he was an infant. And I thought, what would happen if I lost this love? What would happen if this joy, this elation, this gratitude, this love were to be taken away? What would I actually do? How could I possibly cope? Then that's an indicative of fear, that you feel so deeply. It's like, how could I be fearful of this foreboding joy? I mean, that, sorry, beg your pardon. So what would happen if that were taken away from me? That's how deeply you love. The pain that you're in is indicative of how deeply you love. And if you or someone else wants to take that away, and the feeling that other would have as opposed to not having you or someone in their life, that's the fear. Because so if you feel, I remember I'm 8 years old, and I told my stepmother, I said, sometimes I feel so deeply it scares me. I don't know what to do with that as an 8-year-old. I don't know how to handle that. And so then I trust someone that hasn't earned the right to hear my story. As an 8-year-old, as a 28-year-old, as a 48-year-old, I still don't know sometimes. And sometimes I make the mistake, not intentionally, that I allow others to hear my story, and they didn't earn that right. So I'm more careful in the future. And it still means it matters that I feel hurt when others haven't held that space for me. I say this only to the extent that, I say this with a caveat. an intention that I think people are trying to do the best that they can every day. They're just trying to do the best they can. And sometimes it might not seem like a lot. What difference do I make? Well, what's the difference if I were here not just speaking? Wouldn't matter. If I weren't here, would it matter? Maybe I would have said, maybe you would have heard something that I said that may have prevented you from doing something or intervening with someone or teaching people about this. No matter what, every single voice matters. Well, there's 9 billion people on the earth. Yeah, and if there's 9 billion people, there's 18 billion ears. And so we share, and more importantly, we listen. Now, that's not all medical woo-woo, and that's not woo-woo, and that's not medical advice and whatnot. Well, it's only to the extent that I don't know what else to do except for be, because I'm a human being, and so are you. That's the take that I have on that. I don't know if that answers your question, Dr. Tanner, whatnot. I don't know what that offers. And you know what? I don't care. Because no matter what, what I've just shared with you matters to someone. I'm curious about Dr. Tan's perspective on that, and also Nomsa as well.
I agree with you, Dr. Laura. Sometimes we tell people our story and we basically expect them to understand what we're going through. When we receive the reaction that we don't expect, then we feel hurt. I used to feel that way, but now I came to a point of realization that what I'm feeling, somebody else don't have to feel it because they've not lived that story. And when you not lived that story, it's difficult for you to understand it. So I always say to people when they're telling me their story, I hear you, but I don't know your pain. I don't know what you're going through. So instead of me judging that person and basically pushing them away, I basically tell them that I am here for you only if you tell me what you want me to do, what role do you want me to play to help you basically to get to where you need to be. Because the fact that you are telling me a story, you want me to help you with that story. So tell me the role you want me to play. And I always leave the room instead of the people telling people that, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I always leave the room for somebody to say, you have my number, you know where I am, and if you do need to talk, I'm always here for you, even if it's at midnight or who is not muted. Somebody's not muted. Even if it's at midnight, so or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. So that person knows where I am. So and then I leave, and I always find that when you let somebody know that I'm here for you, because sometimes people, you tell them their story, they judge you, and they've not lived that story. Because like myself, there are things that I used to before that when somebody says them, I feel hurt. And when I worked on myself, I realized that I don't have to react that way, but I still relate to the people that are not into personal development. When they tell me their story, and I look at it and I'm like, I used to be there. So I'm like, what part do you want me to play? So we don't have to judge people, and we have to be there for somebody. And if that person, they are really, really messed up deep, that's when the professionals have to basically, that person need to uh, get help. And basically, you have to, when somebody that wants to take their own life, or somebody who has anxiety, or suffers from anxiety and depression, when they confide in you, you have to have empathy. You have to find that special place in your heart to actually listen to them. And you have to listen with care. You have to basically be genuine. Your response has to be genuine, not I have to listen. You have to, basically, they need to feel that, yes, you are there, you care, and basically listen to their feelings, their experience, what they are going through, and don't let get attached, because what people end up doing is trying to get attached to the situation, trying to help. But that's not helping, because you're both going to end up in the depression journey. So what you do is just try to make sure that you help them. And for me, when somebody basically is going through something, I don't mind praying and fasting for them. If I have to go 5 days without food, basically fasting for that person, because that's my beliefs, that I believe in God. Fast and praying for them, I don't mind doing that, because that's the only thing that I can do. I'm not a doctor, so that's the only thing that I can do. But if you have somebody that is basically going through, and Dr. Biggett, I was telling you, people think when you have money, when you have this, that girl the link that I sent you, that girl, she's a supermodel, and she actually took her own life, and she's also a millionaire. And so people need to understand that just because somebody's life is perfect, it doesn't mean that they don't need help. So we just have to, that's why every path that you take, you have a purpose. We have a purpose to play. We have a part to play when we meet people. We have a part to play as the angels of God or the angels of the universe, basically to help. And when somebody tells you that this is what I'm going through, and you dismiss that person, and then the following day you hear they've taken their own life, can you believe how it will make you feel? So, and also Dr. Biggett, you and Dr. Laura, you touched that people sometimes they judge people like, how could you do this? People, when somebody takes their own life, basically, they don't have options in their mind. The mind basically, we know how mind works. When we allow the thoughts that shouldn't be there, we know how it works. So it's the mind that takes control. And when that mind, the evil thoughts, takes control, then that means there is no room for survival. So it's only that person that has to basically fight. So if they can't fight, before I used to be like a warrior, I would be like, why would somebody who has everything take their own life? But now, having to basically understand the spirituality, how the spiritual work, and how the depression and the anxiety work. Because me, I like to read, I like to basically to relate to things. And now I'm coming to a realization that actually we don't have control of what will happen tomorrow. Our feelings, we don't have control. But we can actually control how we think, how we live our lives, by basically, when you don't feel okay, having the courage to say, you know what, I don't feel too good. And I remember when I was going through basically separation with my ex, I remember ringing the doctor and talking to the receptionist. She goes, is it an emergency? Because with only taking appointment for the emergency, I was like, yes, it's an emergency. And when I walked into the doctor and he was like, no, sir, how are you? I was like, I'm fine. I'm not too good. I don't know what happened, but my head is not right. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, what has happened? So I told him the shock, and he was like, oh, it's a shock. So because my GP was really nice person and a very good GP, he basically arranged for me to have a counseling. But because I was able to take a stand, seek help, and say I wasn't okay, and I got help. And when I got help straight away, that feeling disappeared. The feeling it was a shock. Basically, it was like somebody hit me with the electricity. And because when you think with somebody you're gonna live forever, you're gonna die forever, and then, and then something happens. So it was that shock, and I was like, what? So it was a shock. So when we started going through with the psychologist, it felt better, because I was able to seek help. But what I did, for me, when I'm going through really, really tough, I don't speak to friends. I seek help, professional help. And that's what I've learned. And it does help, because I know a professional person, I'm going to just walk in, they're not going to judge me. They're just going to listen to me. So over to you, Dr. Laura.
I think the point that you're making is so profound, and based on the age, the number of years we've lived. And when I consider a young person, I think to myself, wow, they have so many years left. I mean, we never really know, really.
Yep.
But I mean, the fact that if someone, a young person, is feeling so low, and that's their experience based on their number of years, maybe they haven't had the number of years where they've had the opportunity to feel that joy and that exuberance and that elation. And so to base the possibility of, wow, I have so many possible number of years to left to live, and I can't imagine living this way for the rest of my life. I can't imagine that. And having 49 years and almost 2 weeks under my belt, that I know that I felt that way too. I remember when I was a teenager coming home at night during the week after school, and I loved school and I loved gymnastics, and then coming home at night and feeling so low, and I had no idea why. I thought, why do I, and crying myself to sleep, going, do my parents even hear me? Do I even matter? Why do I feel this low? And having no idea why I felt that way. And I only had maybe 16 years of my experience, 3 of which I really didn't remember, and 10 of which I'm so young that I remember them then. Now I remember a little bit from that time. Thinking, how could I possibly live 70, 80, 90, 100 years feeling this way for the rest of my life? I can't do that. So looking at my trajectory, do I really want to have those number of years left to feel this way? It's all reference. I could be 78 or 31 or 57 and feel that way. And possibly, just possibly, the number of years that I have behind me. See, there's a reason why we're in the vehicle, and I use this as an analogy, that there's a reason why the rear view mirror is smaller than our windshield. I have the opportunity to look back and know from where I came. I can't change that. And the side view mirrors, I'm going to get hit upside the head, and I don't know what's coming, and whoa, I didn't expect that. And I can look through my peripheral vision and say, oh, I saw you coming. I'm going to veer over. I don't want to go there again. Because I know that windshield is so vast and so broad. And when I only know from a certain perspective how bad, we really don't know how bad, it's all subjective, it was, I don't want to feel that way no more. And then I got to work to keep looking back. I got to keep looking through the rearview mirror. And then I have my eyes not focused on the front. And what if there's a camel in front of me? I'm going to hit the camel. I don't want to hit that camel. I'm on an open road. And so all these different opportunities, and when I'm in that state and I think, oh God, can it get any worse? Can I possibly feel any worse? And all I see in front of me is what's following me. It's the possibility of what if. And even if you don't believe in the what if, believe that someone believes in the what if. Maybe one person does. Well, will I even matter? When I walk into the room, in the words of Toni Morrison, when your child walks into the room, do your eyes light up? So when we see someone walk into the room, do your eyes light up? Do your eyes light up? That could be the saving grace for someone who you touch today. And I don't mean doing it random acts of kindness, purposeful acts of kindness, conscious acts of kindness. Because that dollar you might provide, even if you don't have a dollar, you have a minute, that could save someone's life. Just a minute, 30 seconds, a glance, a look, a smile.
I love that. We all matter. Just know that you matter, and we really all matter. And yes, sometimes it's subjective. Talking about Yumsa, you mentioned that some having money and things is not necessarily something that make a difference. That's very true. A more well-known example, at least here in the U.S. and I think internationally now, people who take their own life is Robin Williams, very successful, have lots of money and so forth. And the same thing. Another person that come to mind is actually that's also a classic uh, almost household name is Kate Spade, the designer. These people are super successful. Now know this. Yes, it's matter. You matter. We want to listen to them. People want to be listened, and with people the Course in Miracles says, I would say it's toward close to an hour. So let me just close this by saying this. The Course in Miracles says that every action is either a call for love or an expression of love. When those who are, whether you or someone you know, feel that that you are in such a space that you feel that you need to self-inflict harm to yourself or kill yourself, or somebody else is doing that, that's because you are calling for love, and know that there is love here, even if you cannot feel it at the moment. That there is, just think about this, there is love here before you even come here. There is love through the time that you are here, and there was still love here afterwards. So there's no shortage of love. At the moment, you might feel that there is just nothingness. There is just bleak and emptiness. And again, feelings not right or wrong, but there is also the truth. The truth is love. And the truth is there is love here. So know that you matter. Your love to others matter. And that others, even if you cannot see it at the moment, love you. There are people who love you. And so just that, remember that. And if it is somebody else who are going through things, the best expressions of love for someone is actually, people feel, their study shows that people feel love when they feel that they are heard. HEARD. So if it's somebody else going through things, listen, please listen, please be a heart with ears and open hand. Please listen to them with no compassion and judgment.
Yes.
If you are going through things, please be a heart with ears and open hand for yourself. Just listen to yourself. Notice what you say, thinking and feeling, and don't have a judgment about that. This is what's going on in my mind and in my heart. And again, back to the analogy of physical things, it is seemingly paralyzing. So get some help. Now, I want to add really briefly here, not to add to make anybody confused. If you're going through this frequently, or know somebody seems to keep going in circle about self-inflicting or something, there is a conditions. I think the technical term is suiciditis. And people who suffer from this condition, or people who has these conditions, actually has a tendency to whenever anything happen, their next thought is kill myself. So in other words, let me give you an example. If you, for instance, going down the road on a regular, otherwise good day, it's been a good day. You go down the road and then your tire blow up, and then now you hit the curb and you're like, no, my car messed up. But most people, practically most people, would say it's been a good day, and you're like, my car messed up. Darn! Now I got to get my car done. You might be annoyed. You might be irritated. People with this condition, including myself, well, the first thought that comes to us is, I can just kill myself and this will be over. So something as little as that. Now, if you have that tendency, now you know somebody like that, now you know that it is actually a condition. Again, doesn't make the person bad or good. It doesn't make me bad or good. It's just a knowledge. And when you have this knowledge, then you can say, okay, if the person doesn't know how to control this, then they need help. They need professional help, the way I did back in the day. If you know how to have the awareness and know to control this, that's a whole different story. But otherwise, please ask for help. Healthcare professionals know about this and can help you with this. And so there is such a condition. But suicide is a very and mental health is a very challenging a challenging topic. And so I just come to my mind the name of the movie that I wanted to share, and it's a wonderful word, or it's a wonderful life. The name of the movie is a wonderful life. after listening to this and now you're feeling happy, go watch that movie. It's a Wonderful Life. It'll make you feel better because at the end of the day, we all want to feel better.
Hi, Dr. Laura. Any words of encouragement before we leave?
Oh my gosh, that was so huge. That was epic. What an amazing share. Yeah, I've never seen It's a Wonderful Life all the way, or Miracle on 34th Street the whole way through. What I do remember is at the end of the film when the angel Charles, I think it's Charles, shows George Malley what the world would have been like without him. What would your life be like if okay. I forget if I shared this on this stage before, this room. There are 86,400 seconds in every day. Every day. And with those seconds, that's what we have in our life account. If we were to put $1 on every single one of those 86,400 seconds, those dollars would be put in a blank bank account. Now, sometimes they, well, what are you doing? I'm just wasting time. Would you waste those $86,400? Highly unlikely. And the thing about it is that we can always make more money. We can never, ever make more time. Now, the thing about it is that time flies, right? Yeah, that's the bad news. The good news is that we're the pilot. We have a choice. And I think that what's an hour? What's a day? What's a year? Well, ask the students who's failing a grade. What's a month? Ask the mother in a 9th month of pregnancy. What's a week? I don't know. Maybe you're a digital online editor. A day? Ask someone who's in a long distance relationship. An hour. A minute. Maybe someone asked if they missed their flight to come home to see their parents. What's a second? What's a millisecond? Ask someone who lost the gold, earned a silver at the Olympics. In that brief moment, what's the blink of an eye? Because no one has the future. None of us, not one of us. Right here, there's the past. That was the past. Mm-hmm. And then what I just said, that's the past. We have right now. Now it's the past. We don't have the future. So when you think about your life, knowing that we can't change what's happened, but we can choose to change the future. And when it comes down to it, there are 3 frogs on a log. 3 frogs. They're sitting on a log. 2 decide to jump off that log. How many are left on the log? How many are left? There's 3 left. Why? Because they decided to jump. They didn't jump. Just because you don't jump, it means you're still here. You can choose to make a difference, and choosing to make a difference means that you choose to make that difference by not doing. I say that within the parameters of the topic, the context of the conversation that we have, because you do make a difference and you're still there on that log. With this, I have to say, don't make that choice. If you feel like you don't have a choice, you have a choice. That's your choice.
Mute myself. Okay. I wasn't responding. So thank you so much, Dr. Laura and Dr. Bigot. Yes, I agree with you. We do have a choice in life to respond, how we respond to every situation. And that's why it's important. The environment where you are in is very, very important. Don't hang out with people just because for the sake of hanging out. Make sure those people, they are the right people, because when you do need help, will they be there for you when you actually need them the most? And that's why for me, basically, I prefer to have one friend, knowing that that friend is real, is genuine, and basically we do have a choice in how we live our lives. And Do we have a right to take our own lives? I'll say in that one, understanding spiritually, I don't think we do. Even if it's your own life, we do have a right to seek help um, and make sure that we get better whenever you're going through something. Seek help. There's always somebody. God has people everywhere. There's always people everywhere that are willing to help you. There might be one of those that don't help people, you know who they are, but there's always others that are really, really looking for help. Um, my father-in-law had mental health problems during lockdown, and he had amazing doctors helping him. He basically, and he was willing to fight as well. And if somebody is willing to fight, you see them fighting basically. If you are willing to fight, you survive whatever it is that you're facing. But if you're not willing to fight, then you basically fall. So we are here at Ngozi Talk Shows Monday to Friday, and we are not doctors. If you're going through mental health problems, please, Dr. Bigot put a helpline, and there's a helpline in the UK as well. I'll put that number as well. Just call 9111 and get help. I'm not saying in the medical department everything is nice. You might find one of those as well, but don't give up. Just keep fighting. Um, we are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time at Ngozi Talk Shows. If you want to get in touch with one of our coaches, speakers, please go to our page and get in touch with me. I'll connect you with whoever you want to connect with. And God bless everyone and live with grace.